Hi, and welcome to the Healthy Home Healing Network. My name is Mary Satoli, and I'm here to help empower all of you to make better healthcare choices and decisions in a world that's pretty bombarded by a lot of information that it's hard to weed through. And I know for myself, with my recent cancer diagnosis, that I have had a really difficult time knowing and deciphering truth from lies and money-making tactics from things that really work. So I wanted to start a channel where I could share my experience, because I feel that what I've been through may help a lot of people, particularly people that are maybe between the ages of 20 and 40 and raising children, and in a position where you have really been exposed exponentially to this healthcare system that didn't exist when I was younger. And I want to share a little bit about that before I get into my whole cancer journey, because I'm going to do some additional videos to share my journey through this because of the choice that I've made and the direction I've decided to take because of my own situation. And I want to go back a little bit and share with you a little bit about what things were like during my childhood and early adolescence. I did not take a single antibiotic until I was about 30. I want to say about 30. When I grew up, we didn't have internet. We didn't have really much technology at all other than a black and white and TV. And we had to get up off the chair to change the channel. We didn't have remote control. So I'm probably dating myself, but so be it. Anyway, I think that somewhere, probably starting in about the 1970s, and I have a book that I'm working on that's detailing the accounts of time and how this whole healthcare system developed. Probably around the time of the Nixon administration, when marijuana was made a class 1 felony or substance, and they tried to demonize it. I think it was to scare people into mental, I don't know, craziness. I think that they thought they were going to make them go crazy or lose their left finger or left arm or something. I'm not exactly sure. But fear is a really huge motivator in this world to sell not only medicine, but I think a lot of other things, military, and I'm not against military necessarily. I'm a vet. I did time in the Air Force, but I am against it being the way to have to solve so many problems that we have in the world is through force, especially when so many other people on this planet are in need of health care, food, basic needs of life that we can't provide because we've spent all this money on this big defense system. Back to the healthcare system a little bit here, because that's what this is about. But it is something that I think started with good intentions. And I'm going to go back to the antibiotics just a little bit, because I think back when they developed penicillin, there was a lot of good intent in a lot of science, and I think there still is, but it's really become so about money. I mean, to the point where it's not about anything else really but money. I think that there's a lot of good doctors out there. I think they're kind of trapped in the system. They got medical degrees thinking that they were going to really do something good for people, and then when Big Pharma sort of took things over and started infiltrating all these drugs into the system, I think that they really got stuck in the middle. They had to pay off student loans, they have families to support, and they had to have a job, like a lot of people. And I think this is how, personally, they're dividing a lot of people through politics, religion, race, every which way to keep our focus off the truth, of which is just a big money-making machine that is for a few very wealthy people that make the decisions for pretty much everything on this planet these days. And it's not, I guess it was apparent when I was younger that this was sort of taking place, but it wasn't on such a global level now that we have internet and we have more awareness about a lot of the things that are happening. So I didn't take any pills. My mom would keep us home from school. We had the flu or colds or whatever we got as kids, and we stayed in bed and we toughed it out. I don't even really remember taking anything like baby aspirin. I mean, we weren't in the habit of running to the doctor. In fact, I can think that probably on one hand, I can count the number of times that I actually saw a doctor before the age of about 28, 29, my late 20s, when this whole thing really started kind of gathering some speed, and more medicines and drugs came out onto the marketplace. So, I mean, it was in its infancy during, I think, around the turn of the 20th century, early 1900s, but I think a lot of it really started to take hold. And that's where the advertisers and the marketing channels were there, because there was just so much money to be made, and people being afraid of death and being afraid that if they didn't take something that the doctor told them to take, that something bad was going to happen to them. And I found that with my own cancer diagnosis, that there just seems to, the doctors are so fearful. You just can feel the fear pouring off of them. And it was like, I went through a lot of really tough stuff before I got cancer with medication withdrawal, and it was a worse hell than what I'm going through right now, other than the fact that I'm financially challenged because of some of my disabilities to make enough money to be able to pay for alternative health care. And that's been ongoing for a while, since I got messed up with taking an anxiety medication back in 1999 for PTSD, related insomnia and anxiety, which is a whole story in itself. But the fear is, I have to really work on moving myself away from that consciousness, because I think that we can really get enveloped in a lot of mental, it almost freezes you on some level to be able to react from a standpoint of making reasonable, rational decisions for your health care, because we're so inundated. So I watched as I kind of got an early taste of what the healthcare system was like 30 years ago, when I was put on antibiotics for a number of routine things like a root canal. And, you know, back then they kind of gave them out more discriminately. We found out more about the microbiome and what it does to kill off our good bacteria. So we know way more than we did 30 years ago about that. And I think that more people are becoming aware of it, but probably not still on a level that it's that a lot of people just don't question that these drugs have side effects and they have repercussions for taking them. And so, kind of back to a little my experience with it, is that I was totally healthy growing up. I didn't have much in the way of childhood illnesses. I was very fortunate. Most of my siblings were pretty healthy as well. We had some challenges, but as a child, I really virtually had endless energy. I ran track, I was athletic, I did all kinds of, activities. I'm a musician, so I was very involved in my life. And after I took the first couple rounds of broad spectrum antibiotics, my health tanked. And I got a really, really bad viral infection while I was out on the road with my band for most of the winter that I couldn't shake. And I'd come off the road and I'd rest for a while and get a little better, and then I couldn't ever quite get rid of it. And they kept giving me, guess what, more antibiotics. And that was before they knew. So I'm not blaming the system for that. I think that they had good intentions to cure something, but I think that we, like with a lot of this technology and a lot of things we're finding out about the the downfalls of it is that there was a effect for the cause. There's a downfall for every benefit that we have incurred because of some of these drugs. And I think that at times they're really necessary. I've had pneumonia. I was in the hospital for 3 days. I was begging for an antibiotic because I was so sick. But it comes to a point where our whole healthcare system is built on people running to the doctor for every body part. And I think I became kind of painfully aware of what happened to me as a result of this anxiety medication I was put on in 1999, because I reacted poorly and the doctors did not really have a clue what was causing it. And so I think I found that the disconnect of the doctors feeling like it can't possibly be a drug, even though we have people who have peanut allergies in this world that can die from eating a peanut. But the doctors don't quite, at least at that time they weren't, making the connection to some of these mental health drugs that a highly addictive narcotic for anxiety, the Xanax, Ativans, and you know about the whole opiate thing that we've got going on even, is that it wasn't possible for these types of drugs to have long-term repercussions that I see a lot of people having problems with, myself included. And the withdrawal from them was brutal, and I'm going to go into that probably in a little more detail in another video, because I want to try to just capture my main goal in this introductory video, which is kind of hard because there's so much to cover. And bear with me because my concentration gets a little off because I've got a TBI, head injuries, and I've had a number of concussions, so I can sort of get off sidebar with some things. But I want to, my goal with this is to educate people through my experience of how they can make better choices and how they can make more informed choices. And I think it's easier now with the internet because we can flip on YouTube, and that's how I've made a cancer treatment plan for myself, is through the voices of other people who shared their stories, which are astronomical. I mean, stage 4 cancer cases who I have every bit of respect for the journey they've taken and the hell they must have gone through to turn their lives around. And I can relate to that, having gone through withdrawal off of a deadly medication with numerous blackouts that caused my head trauma and head injuries. And then on top of it, I think the stress of just trying to survive financially and get my life back on some kind of track with my existing disabilities has been what kind of led up to my cancer diagnosis, because I've always taken pretty good care of myself. And I know that's no guarantee in this world because we're exposed to toxins and all kinds of things that we can't control. And I think that's the key, is what can we control and what can't we control in our world, because there seems like so much of it and it's so hard to know what choices to make with all the information that we have at our fingertips. So in some ways it's good because we have access to more and we have more choices that we can pick from rather than just drugs and surgery. But also the information can be, as I said, overwhelming at times because we don't really know what's tested, what's true. And that's why I'm kind of going with testimonials based on, excuse me, my own experience, because I feel a bit betrayed with the medical system not being informed about this drug, being left on it for as long as I was, with a number of health challenges that I developed after I was put on it. And the withdrawal itself, I was tapering off the drug very slowly and still had just a whole array of things. The list is too long to mention here. Far worse than my cancer symptoms, far worse than anything I've ever endured in my life. Hours and hours of being alone when I've worked in an industry that's relied on me having people skills and being able to communicate and engage with people on a level that most people are terrified to do most of the time, because it can be kind of intimidating getting up on stage when you aren't a people person. But I loved people, and I excelled in a business that was pretty stressful, and I enjoyed the people contact. And so now I am doing something to try to empower myself with my own situation and create awareness and help other people empower themselves through it. I'm going to just add a few more things, and then I think I'll go on to another video at a different time with some of my process and how I got here and what I'm doing now as a result. But I want to tell you a little bit about some of my organizations and what I've been doing while I've been recovering from the drug damage, the head injuries, and now cancer. It's been a journey for sure. But I just, if anyone, like Chris Beats Cancer, Jill Snyder, which I'm going to leave her link below. She has a healing center in Florida. I'm going to leave her link. She's been very helpful. She went through cervical cancer and is a wealth of information and has been really helpful in my journey. I read her book, and probably she sent it to me, I think, the first week that I got my diagnosis, and I spent that whole week just, I didn't tell anybody. I was scared. I think I laid here and I read that book, and she gave me so much courage to stand my ground with doctors and have the courage to look at information and be engaged in my own healing process in a way that, we all think we know what we're going to do when we get that C word. We're all pretty sure of it. But when you're faced with it, you really do go through some, am I doing the right thing? Am I, making the right choices? And I think we're in a world that is so incredibly toxic to begin with that it's hard, both physically and emotionally, being bombarded by negative media, negative feedback, angry people, that we need to really connect with each other and embrace some sort of humanitarianism in the system, because we can't accomplish anything if we're angry at each other and pointing fingers and accusing. It doesn't get anything done. So I have started an organization called the Follow Your Bliss Foundation, and the precipice for it is that after I came off the medications that I was on, I was pretty much of a train wreck, and I had ended up in the hospital, as I mentioned, with pneumonia for a few days. And when I got out, I think I realized, boy, I've got to really do something positive, or I'm going to sit here and rot and feel like I'm useless at this point in my life. So the whole purpose of it, and I'll leave a link to that, so anybody who's interested in getting off meds, we help with counseling services. I do blogs and YouTube videos on another station that I have, which I can leave a link to as well. And any donations for that would be greatly appreciated, because I'm trying to pay for my own cancer treatment, which I only get $730 a month on disability, so it's been a rough time, and most of my friends have been footing the bill for this and can't afford to do it much longer, and I am not able to work at much of anything except sitting here and creating things in my little guest house that I'm blessed to have at this point, because without my friends I would be out in the streets with cancer and debilitating nervous system damage from head injury stuff and drug damage. So again, this is to empower most of you younger people who have been indoctrinated into a system that didn't exist 20, 30 years ago. And I think there's a lot of good things about it. Emergency medicine, if I break a leg, first thing I want to see is an ER doctor. If I have internal bleeding, I was in the hospital with that for a few days, I would want to have the best emergency medicine and diagnostic stuff that I could have at my fingertips. But when a big corporation like Johnson & Johnson and Merck, and to name a few, are basically deciding our healthcare choices for chronic illnesses, a lot of the information is going to get stacked in their favor, because they're the only ones with enough money to run these trials and tests. So keep that in mind when you take any drug, that no one is going to be invested in the amount of money these drug trials cost unless they're selling it. So I'm going to leave you with that thought for today, and I'll be back with more on my treatment. And like I said, I have a GoFundMe account for those of you who'd like to help me pay for just my food at this point, because that's my medicine. And our nonprofit, you can choose to donate through the nonprofit as well, so we can keep our website going, and I can keep bringing you some YouTube videos so that I can show you how healing is possible and how other people are doing the same thing to inspire me. And that's what it's all about, is sharing our stories so that we can empower each other to get through this miserable mess that we have in the world right now called corporate America, that is running everything. And I have a lot of knowledge. I've had 2 for-profit businesses, successful. I'm an award-winning musician, and I've had 2 nonprofit organizations, one of which is the Follow Your Bliss Foundation, to help people who've been badly damaged from prescription psychiatric medications. And we're digging for information to try to find a solution to the damages they've caused. So I'll get into that in a little bit more detail in some of my next videos, but I wanted to just say hi and give you a little introduction about the new channel and who I am and what I'm doing and why I'm here. But we'll see you soon, and I am looking forward to bringing you a lot of great information on not only cancer healing, but all kinds of other stuff. So for now, thank you, and we'll see you soon. Bye.